All right. Today I want to talk about the structure of a typical Svelte project. What goes into it, which file does what. So the easy ones are index.html and then main.js and app.svelte. Those are the simple ones. We know what they do, but we'll talk about them. But more importantly, the tricky ones are package.json and most importantly, rollup.config.js. So let's dive in. So first, we create a project by going to wherever you want to create the project and then say npx degit svelte js/template and then give it the target name. Let's call it I don't know, svelte um, template. So whatever, or svelte. Let's just say svelte foo. Okay, so that creates my project. Now I open that project in VS Code. So here we go, dev svelte foo is right there. So we open it. Obviously, there are a bunch of files, but before we look at the files, let's just run the project in dev mode. So looks like there is, oh, of course, I cannot run the project in dev mode until I have executed npm install. So let's do that. So npm install, that'll get all the packages I need. You could also do yarn install if you prefer that. All right, let's run dev. Now there are two ways to run dev. One is to run, say npm run dev. The other way, which I prefer, is to use VS Code's npm scripts plugin. And here, just click on dev, and that has started the server. And let's just open local host 5000, and that gives me this system running. Good. Uh, this you've seen several times. That's nothing new. But now let's see where is all this coming from. So there is this public directory that has, this build was just created as a result of me running it. So ignore the build for now. There's index.html, which is the first on our list. And then there is favicon.png, which you can and should probably replace. There's global.css, which is some basic CSS styles coming with the template. You should probably blank it out and start afresh with your own. And in index.html, the favicon is linked, the global.css is linked, and here the bundle.css is linked. Now this is not a part of your source code. This is compiled and it's created by the compilation process. Similarly, there is this script which is bundle.js, which is, as you can see, it's in the head tag. And you might say, hey, am I not supposed to include JavaScript files at the bottom of the body? Yes, but in this case, there is a defer attribute which is equivalent to putting it at the bottom of the body. So index.html is very simple. It simply includes the output of the compilation process, links it, CSS and JS. Now, what is the source code? What's in the source code? There is app.svelte. Again, you are familiar if you have done one of my earlier projects, you've seen a basic Svelte app. I'm not going to go into that. This is the main component, and main.js simply instantiates that Svelte component, the app component, and just by the act of instantiating it and then giving it a target of document.body is how it injects that into index.html's body right here. So this was the easy part. Okay, now let's get into trickier part. Hopefully all this was nothing new to you, but the interesting parts are package.json and rollup.config.js. So in package.json there are three scripts. There is build, dev, and start. The easiest one is build because you just run the rollup minus C command line tool, which means it executes the rollup, and minus C means use the config file, the default config file, which is rollup.config.ca. package.js. So that's what will do the compilation. How will it do the compilation? It will look at the rollup.config.js, which we will see in a second. Now that is if you simply want to produce this in public, this build directory. This is created by rollup, and rollup, as you know, is a bundler, and then it is outputting its files in build directory, and there is build.css, which contains all styles in our Svelte components. Then there is build.bundle.js, which is all the JavaScript, all the components themselves bundled into a single JS files, all the Svelte components and other JavaScript code. And these are two map files. Those are used only for to map between the generated code and the source code. So coming back to package.json. So that's what rollup.c is doing. But then when you run npm run dev, which is what we did, it runs rollup with -w as in watch. Um, so -c means use config file, and -w means watch. What is it watching? It's watching all of the source code. So let's dive into rollup.config.js at this point. So here's now we are at in the tricky parts, package.json and rollup.config.js. So rollup.config.js is simply just any other JavaScript file with, it's more like ES6 files, I guess. And it imports Svelte compiler, rather Svelte plugin for rollup, imports resolve, CommonJS, live reload, and Cursor. We will go through these as they get used in here. So the main thing is it establishes production flag, which is if rollup was executed was started in watch mode, which you, if you remember, we did have rollup in uh, watch mode here with -w option, right, for dev. So if rollup was executed in watch mode, then um, we are not in production. But if we are not in watch mode, then we are in production. Okay. Now, this is the most important export. The export default, the object that runs rollup. It provides configuration to rollup. Rollup again is the equivalent of Webpack. It's a bundler. The uh, the default object, the configuration of rollup needs input file name, the starting point, which is main.js. Remember everything because main.js is instantiating our root component. Output, which has a few other options like whether to generate source maps, um, whether what format to output in. IIFE is a or versus MJS versus others. IIFE is immediately invoked function expression. Um, you can see that um, if you look at bundle.js itself, you will find that it is it's generated as an IIFE. I cannot go into what IIFE is without making this video too long. All right, so um, input and output are specified. This is the file name public slash build slash bundle.js. And now comes the most interesting part, which is the plugins. Plugins is an array of functions, and rather maybe objects. In any case, so array of plugins. Um, so this is the first plugin, which is the Svelte compiler plugin. It takes the input basically goes through the array in sequence. The output of one plugin becomes the input of next, and so on and so forth, until the final output is generated at the very end. Okay, so here is Svelte compiler. It's running in dev mode or production mode based on the fact if you are running rollup watch or not. And then here's the thing. This is a side effect. It's a side product. The public build bundle.css is a side product. It's not a part of the output as such here. But still, the Svelte compiler needs to generate it. So that's what it does. The next plugin is Resolve and CommonJS. These two are needed to compile Node.js dependencies that you might have in your node underscore modules directory. So that's why they are needed. And there is some special treatment needed for Svelte and Svelte related packages. So they are saying dedupe them, do not include them in the final output, I guess. Any case, and here comes the interesting part, serve and live reload. What it's doing is if you are not in production, then run serve. And also, if you're not in production, include the live reload plugin. That is what is making us, like if I go to app.svelte and make some basic change here and save it. As soon as I save it, on the right hand side, this window reloads. That is a result of live reload. Also, serve function is serving our application on localhost 5000. Now, how is it doing that? There is a function. So it's in this case, serve is not an external plugin. It's a function that is locally created. This function returns an object. That object has one method, write bundle, and so on and so forth. Those are the things that rollup plugins must do. But in the end, what it really does is it runs npm run start with minus minus space minus minus dev option. Now this is the important part because uh, package.json has, you will see, um, it has this script, start script. So what it's basically doing is npm run start with minus minus. So it expands to npm run start minus 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 dev, which executes this script, and that is equivalent to running sirv serve, which is a static file server, public minus minus dev. I think, yeah, that's what it means. So this, what it's saying is run the static file server in dev mode, and that causes the live reloading and everything to happen, reloading of files as they change, etc. And that is what these two lines, this line is doing. And the next line, live reload, what its job is, that's a plugin over here, and its job is to watch for any changes in the source code. And then, most importantly, there is an embedded piece of JavaScript within this page, which is what causes a new request to be executed every time there is a change in the file. So if I um, make another change, you'll notice that there will be an HTTP request as soon as I make this change here. Save it, and that causes HTTP request. And that is a result of this live reload plugin, which is right here. Now, finally, it's the last plugin in the chain is if we are running in production, only then run Cursor. Cursor is basically a minifier. It will minify bundle.js to the extent that it can. And that is what you want when you are running in production mode. And here's a little extra option for watch. The rollup minus W watch clears screen is false, which means every time it reloads, it does not clear the screen. You probably want to see what happened earlier before that. So that is the explanation of rollup.config.js. With that, we have covered the structure of a typical Svelte project. I would suggest that you do customize this template to your own. Replace global.css, replace the fav icon, and perhaps, of course, if it's a serious application, you'll be adding a whole bunch of other Svelte components. So once again, stay curious and keep learning.